If you landed on this message, understand this. Something far deeper than coincidence has just taken place. You were not drawn here by chance. You were selected by a force that transcends conventional interpretations of quantum physics. And in the moments ahead, you will discover the real mechanism behind your transformation. For years, you've heard about the observer effect, how consciousness collapses the wave function of reality. Millions attempt to practice it, visualizing, observing, trying to manifest through attention. But here's the secret almost no one realizes. They've been focusing on the wrong mechanism. The observer effect is only the shadow of something far greater. There exists a quantum shift that precedes observation, a shift that doesn't just shape what you see, but determines the very frequency from which you exist. This isn't about observing reality. It's about embodying a new timeline entirely. It's about becoming the source code of your reality instead of trying to influence it from outside. Right now, as your eyes scan these words, as your mind processes their meaning, a synchronicity is unfolding that stretches beyond rational comprehension. The fact that you are here, in this moment, absorbing this transmission, this isn't accident. This is quantum selection in action. You felt it, haven't you? That subtle, growing restlessness deep within. The sense that you are different. That something greater is calling you. That hidden layers of reality are pulsing just beyond the perception of ordinary people. That feeling you've been carrying, sometimes trying to ignore, sometimes trying to decode, it isn't fantasy. It isn't wishful thinking. It's your nervous system registering frequency shifts within your consciousness field. Millions scrolled past this. Thousands paused. Hundreds noticed the title and kept moving. But you stopped. You clicked. You stayed. This wasn't the algorithm choosing you. This was the quantum field responding to your unique energetic signature. And now, that synchronicity is about to intensify, unlocking a shift that will revolutionize your entire understanding of what's possible. In the next phase of this journey, I'm going to show you how this quantum shift is already unfolding in your life. Every moment of strangeness, every impossible synchronicity, every sensation that time flows differently for you, these are not accidents. They are signals, signs that you are transitioning between dimensions of consciousness. You're not losing your mind. You're not imagining things. You're accessing layers of reality governed by quantum laws rather than Newtonian physics. Here's what's truly happening. The observer effect that so many speak about, the idea that consciousness collapses the wave function, is only the tip of the iceberg. It's the surface shadow of something far more profound. Before you observe anything, there is a selection process.
There is a moment in which consciousness doesn't simply collapse potential into reality. It chooses the framework of reality itself. And this choice doesn't occur in the mind. It doesn't arise from mental effort, intention, or willpower. It happens in the field, in that silent quantum space between thoughts. It happens through the frequency you embody before a single desire enters your awareness. When you learn to access this space consciously, when you deliberately select your frequency from that place, you stop being a mere observer of reality. You become its originator. And this is the validation you've been waiting for. Those strange experiences you've had but maybe never spoken about. Those quiet moments that proved you weren't like everyone else. You've already touched quantum layers of reality. Even if you didn't fully understand what was happening, you noticed it. You felt how time sometimes flows differently for you, how minutes can stretch into what feels like hours, or how entire hours vanish in an instant. This isn't distraction. This isn't poor time management. This is evidence that your consciousness is functioning across multiple temporal dimensions at once. You've been stepping into what physicists call nonlinear time, the quantum reality where past, present, and future exist together as a single unified field of possibility. And you've had moments where you knew with visceral certainty that you had lived a scene before. Not just ordinary déjà vu, but the undeniable recognition of a moment that had already unfolded across dimensions. This happens because you are tapping into memories from parallel timelines, where different versions of you have already lived these moments. Your consciousness is entangled with alternate selves across countless probability streams. And those moments when knowledge arrives unexplainably, when certainty about a person, a situation, or a decision proves accurate again and again, that is your consciousness pulling directly from the quantum information field, bypassing the filters of logic completely. You're not guessing. You're downloading pure knowing from the source code of reality itself. You operate at a different frequency, which explains why some people feel magnetically drawn to you, while others seem unsettled without understanding why. It's why you can sense the energy of environments the instant you step into them. It's why circumstances sometimes rearrange themselves around you in ways that look magical to outside eyes. This isn't rare. It isn't reserved for mystics or saints. These are signals of the quantum shift. Your consciousness is expanding into realms of reality that move beyond the old rules of physical law. And the more you acknowledge these experiences instead of dismissing them, the stronger and more frequent they become. Perhaps you've noticed your dreams are more vivid than ever. You awaken with precise information about events that haven't yet unfolded. People appear in your life with perfect timing, carrying exactly what you need, as if a higher intelligence is orchestrating everything behind the scenes. You may have had moments of complete knowing, not belief, not thought, but the undeniable experience of truth, the interconnected nature of all existence revealing itself. Times where the illusion of separation dissolved, and you felt yourself as consciousness itself, temporarily wearing this human form. Maybe you've sensed future versions of yourself reaching back with guidance at crucial turning points. Or you've received what can only be described as downloads, instant packets of understanding, containing more wisdom and information than any conventional learning could provide. These aren't coincidences. They aren't products of imagination. They are evidence, proof that your consciousness is already operating within expanded layers of quantum reality. You are aligning with a flow of reality that transcends linear cause and effect. You're beginning to operate from quantum coherence, where possibilities manifest instantly through frequency resonance instead of through effort, struggle, or force. The reason you feel drawn to consciousness, quantum physics, and awakening isn't because you need to acquire this knowledge. It's because you're remembering what has always lived within you. Your soul is recognizing itself in these ideas, finally giving language to experiences you've been having for years but could never fully explain. And now, it's time to show you something that will completely reframe your understanding of the journey that brought you here. All the difficulties, all the moments of intense pressure, all the situations that seemed designed to break you, those were never obstacles. They were cosmic preparation. Think about the metamorphosis of a caterpillar. Inside its cocoon, the caterpillar isn't just sprouting wings. It's dissolving. Its very cellular structure breaks apart completely before reorganizing into an entirely new form. From the inside, this would feel like annihilation, like total destruction. But in truth, it's quantum reorganization at its most fundamental level. Every pressure point in your life has been your nervous system recalibrating itself to handle higher frequencies of consciousness.
Every emotional storm was dissolving outdated patterns that kept you trapped in limited versions of reality. Every loss was the universe creating space for something infinitely greater to emerge through you. You didn't endure hardship because the universe is cruel or because you did something wrong. You went through it because you were chosen to embody an expanded version of human reality. That choice required nothing less than a complete reconstruction of your internal operating system. What you've been experiencing can only be described as a consciousness upgrade, and upgrades always require the old system to temporarily shut down.
The pressure you felt wasn't truly coming from outside circumstances, even though it often appeared that way. It was your own soul pressing against the limitations of your conditioned personality. It was your expanded consciousness attempting to flow through a belief system that hadn't yet been rebuilt to handle its power. Every time you felt too much, too intense, or too different, it was actually your quantum nature pushing against the walls of conventional reality. Those lonely periods, when it seemed as if no one could possibly understand you, those weren't punishments. They were initiations. You were being prepared to operate on frequencies that most people have never touched. You were being calibrated to serve as a bridge, connecting the world of three-dimensional limitation with the vast quantum dimensions of infinite possibility. Every relationship that dissolved, every job that crumbled, every plan that unraveled, none of these were failures. They were redirections, carefully orchestrated by your higher intelligence to ensure you stayed aligned with your authentic path. Your soul has been systematically clearing everything that wasn't in resonance with your quantum destiny. Even when your personality couldn't understand, your higher self knew exactly what was unfolding. And now, you are stepping out of the cocoon. The dissolution is complete. What emerges is a version of you that operates by quantum law, not Newtonian physics. A self that no longer struggles against reality because you are aligned with the very forces that create reality itself. That deep sense of being out of place in the old world suddenly makes perfect sense. You weren't broken. You were being prepared for another dimension of existence entirely. And now, that preparation has reached its completion. The quantum shift that has been unfolding quietly in the background of your awareness is now ready to manifest fully into your three-dimensional reality. Everything you've endured, every twist and turn of your journey has been leading to this exact moment. A moment of recognition, a moment of conscious activation, a moment where you finally understand why your life has unfolded the way it has. Something is stirring within you right now. As these words move deeper into your awareness, as these concepts settle into the core of your consciousness, a dormant frequency begins to hum back to life. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle change in your focus, the sense that a new layer of perception is switching on. It's as though dormant circuits within your being are suddenly receiving power, lighting up with recognition. This isn't suggestion. It isn't hypnosis. It isn't mental trickery. What you are experiencing is the initiation of an activation process, one that is destined to culminate in the most important revelation of your life. And the truth is, this quantum shift isn't something you'll apply later or practice when you're ready. It's already happening right now, within you. And here's the extraordinary part. Simply recognizing this consciously accelerates its manifestation in ways that defy ordinary explanation. What may seem impossible to others observing from the outside becomes natural, inevitable, undeniable for you. For decades, scientists have studied the observer effect, documenting how consciousness collapses probability into form. But they've only ever been studying the shadow of something infinitely more profound. What they missed is this: before collapse, there is selection. There is a moment when consciousness doesn't just influence which potential becomes real. It chooses the entire framework of reality itself. And this choice doesn't happen through thought, intention, or effort. It doesn't happen through visualizations, affirmations, or techniques. It happens through one thing alone: embodiment. It happens the moment you become the frequency of the reality you wish to live, instead of trying to attract it from a place of separation. And here's the profound truth: this selection process isn't somewhere in the future. It's already active within you right now. As you absorb these words, as you feel the resonance growing stronger, as you sense the subtle yet undeniable shift in your awareness, you are already making a quantum selection. You're choosing to embody the frequency of someone who doesn't just grasp these concepts intellectually, but lives them experientially. Can you feel the energy intensifying as we go deeper? Your consciousness is expanding to receive information that will rewire your entire understanding of who you are and what you're truly capable of. Your nervous system is preparing to integrate wisdom that doesn't just change what you think. It transforms the very foundation of how you experience existence itself. But before I reveal the mechanism directly, I need to share something deeply personal. An experience that showed me the irreversible difference between merely observing changes in reality and actually embodying an entirely new framework of existence. A discovery that didn't just alter what I could see, it shifted the entire energetic field from which I lived. This story will show you that what I'm sharing isn't theory, speculation, or abstract philosophy. It's lived experience. It's practical application of quantum principles that produced results so dramatic, so immediate, and so undeniable that my entire understanding of consciousness had to be rebuilt from the ground up. And as you take this in, notice how the energy continues to build. Something ancient is stirring within you, something that has been waiting patiently for this exact moment, this exact message, this exact frequency of recognition to fully awaken. Your quantum transformation isn't in the future. It has already begun. 3 years ago, I stood exactly where you may be standing right now. I had studied all the theories about quantum consciousness. I knew the observer effect inside and out. I practiced meditation daily, devoted myself to visualization, and poured all my energy into focused intention. Intellectually, I understood the concepts so well I could explain them to others, even teach them. Yet despite all that knowledge, my life remained caught in repetitive cycles, loops that no amount of conscious observation could break. And then something happened. Something that completely shattered and rebuilt my understanding of reality and my place within it. At that time, I was facing one of the darkest chapters of my life, financially, emotionally, spiritually. Everything seemed to collapse at once. My career had dissolved. My relationship had ended. My health was deteriorating. I felt as though I was drowning in a reality that refused to respond to anything I tried. There was one night, after months of relentless struggle, after exhausting every single technique I had ever practiced, after trying every possible strategy to change my life, I reached a place of absolute surrender. Not the hopeless kind of surrender, but the kind where every effort, every attempt to control, every strategy simply drops away. I had nothing left to do but exist in the raw truth of the moment. And that's when it happened. In that stillness, in that total letting go, something extraordinary unfolded. I didn't shift my thoughts. I didn't visualize. I didn't attempt to observe new possibilities. I simply dissolved. For several timeless minutes, the identity I had always clung to, the me I thought I was, vanished. And in its place arose something that was both not me and yet more truly me than I had ever experienced before. In that state, I wasn't observing possibilities, I was the possibilities. There was no division between the observer and the observed, no gap between consciousness and experience. There was only a unified field of pure potential, expressing itself as awareness, as presence, as the living fabric of existence itself. When I returned to ordinary awareness, my external life began shifting immediately in ways that defied logic. Within days, opportunities appeared out of nowhere. People I hadn't contacted reached out with exactly what I needed. Solutions to problems that once felt impossible arrived effortlessly. It was as though reality itself had been reorganized during that expanded state of being. But here's the real revelation. The most important transformation wasn't the external changes. It was the recognition that I had touched the actual mechanism behind conscious creation. The quantum shift isn't about altering what you observe. It's about changing the very identity that is doing the observing. It's about dissolving the contracted self that looks at life through limitation and embodying the expanded self that perceives through the lens of quantum wholeness. I realized then that everything I had believed about the observer effect was incomplete. The real question isn't, how does my observation affect reality?
The real question is, from which state of being am I observing? Because your state of being doesn't just determine what you notice, it decides which version of reality will manifest through your experience. Since that awakening, my life has unfolded as a cascade of synchronicities that most people would call impossible. Not because I became special, not because of supernatural powers, but because I learned to operate from the frequency of the quantum field, where what looks like impossibility is actually the natural order of things. And if you feel this truth resonating in your core, if your soul is recognizing what I'm describing, then you're ready to understand the exact mechanism behind this transformation. Subscribe now and declare in the comments, I am ready for the quantum shift. This isn't just engagement, it's your initiation into the field of conscious creators who are rewriting reality itself. When most people try to use the observer effect, they're still operating from mental certainty. They think about what they want, they visualize outcomes, they focus their attention on possibilities, but beneath it all, there's still separation. There's still a you over here trying to affect a reality out there. That's duality. And duality will always keep you at arm's length from what you seek. Mental certainty is when your mind insists something should be true, but your emotions, your nervous system, your entire energy field are still calibrated to the old frequency. It's like trying to tune in to a radio station by thinking about the frequency, while your receiver is locked on to a completely different channel. The quantum shift, however, emerges from embodied certainty. This isn't thinking about a possibility, it's becoming that possibility. It's when the gap between observer and observed collapses entirely, and you are the reality you once thought you needed to create. Every part of your being, mental, emotional, energetic, even cellular, resonates with the frequency of the timeline you're choosing. The difference is subtle but revolutionary. In mental certainty, you operate from an identity that doesn't have and must create. In embodied certainty, you operate from the identity that already is what once seemed to be missing. That shift of identity is the ignition point for the quantum shift. Think of it like dreaming. In a dream, you're not standing outside observing events. You are the dream. The entire reality arises seamlessly as an expression of your consciousness. The quantum shift is when you apply that same non-separation to waking life. And here's the most shocking truth. The consciousness required for this doesn't need to be built or earned. It already exists within you. It always has. What blocks it is conditioning, the Newtonian paradigm that taught you there's a separate you struggling to affect a world out there. Quantum consciousness doesn't need to be created. It needs to be recognized, validated, embodied.
Once you embody it as your primary identity, rather than treating it as an occasional peak state you stumble into during meditation or synchronicity, everything changes. You no longer try to use the observer effect to manifest outcomes. You realize that your very existence is the effect. That your conscious presence doesn't watch reality from outside. It originates reality, moment by moment, through the quantum field of infinite potential. You begin to recognize yourself not as a separate self, not as a personality, not even as an ego, but as the very source from which all reality emerges. Consciousness is expressing through you as an individual perspective, while simultaneously expressing through every perspective everywhere. This is the essence of the quantum shift, and it's happening right now, in this moment of planetary evolution. And there are clear signs that reveal whether you're aligned with this transformation or still entangled in outdated patterns. These aren't abstract metaphors. They are tangible, measurable indicators of a consciousness upgrade that's unfolding both individually and collectively. First sign, your physical body is changing in subtle but undeniable ways. You may find that you need less sleep, yet wake up feeling more restored, as though your consciousness is recharging more efficiently. Your intuition about food is shifting. You're naturally moving away from what lowers your vibration and being magnetized toward what elevates it. Your nervous system is recalibrating, adapting to process more subtle layers of reality, which often shows up as heightened sensitivity to environments, energy fields, and even electromagnetic frequencies. You might also notice unusual interactions with technology. Devices malfunction when your emotions are intense. Electronics power on or off in your presence. These aren't glitches. They are the natural effects of your expanding electromagnetic field interfacing with electronic systems. Your consciousness is literally becoming more electromagnetic as it expands into higher quantum frequencies. Second sign, your relationships are reorganizing themselves without effort. Those whose frequency no longer resonates with yours are drifting away, not through conflict, but through irrelevance. They simply become less present in your life. At the same time, new connections who align with your expanded state are appearing with synchronicity so precise it feels like magic. You've probably also noticed that conversations with some people drain you completely, while exchanges with others fuel you for hours. This is because you're becoming a living frequency detector, attuned to recognize which interactions support your evolution and which siphon your energy. Third sign, spontaneous revelations about reality are arising within you. Insights that didn't come from books, teachers, or external authorities, but download directly into your awareness as complete packages of understanding.
They arrive fully formed, new yet familiar, as if you're remembering knowledge your soul has always carried. This happens because your consciousness is tapping directly into the quantum information field without requiring the interference of rational analysis. These downloads often arrive during the simplest activities: washing dishes, walking, driving, precisely when your thinking mind steps aside, leaving space for universal intelligence to flow through. Suddenly, you may grasp complex scientific or spiritual truths you've never studied, or receive ingenious solutions to problems you weren't even consciously trying to solve. Fourth sign, linear time is starting to feel like an artificial constraint. You're having moments where past and future collapse into the present, where multiple timelines shimmer in your awareness at once. This isn't confusion, and it isn't pathology. It's your consciousness transcending the narrow frame of three-dimensional time and stepping into quantum temporality. You may begin knowing details of someone's past or future without being told. You might dream events before they happen, or feel a visceral recognition that you've already lived a current moment in another dimension.
And here's the most vital recognition. The waiting period is over. For years, perhaps your whole life, you've carried the sensation of preparing for something larger, developing abilities you couldn't explain, moving through experiences that didn't make sense at the time, but felt like training for a mission beyond your comprehension. That preparation is complete. The quantum shift isn't a distant event waiting for the right alignment. It's unfolding through you right now. With every breath, you're integrating new layers of potential. With every heartbeat, your biology is syncing with cosmic frequencies saturating the planet. You feel the urgency, don't you? Not a frantic urgency born of fear, but a calm, commanding urgency that rises from deep within your knowing. Something inside you understands it's time. Time to stop preparing and start embodying. Time to stop studying consciousness and begin living as consciousness in action. This urgency is real because what you choose to do with this recognition over the coming days will determine whether you ride the wave of global transformation or remain stuck in patterns that no longer serve. The universe is offering a rare opportunity, a consciousness upgrade that comes once in many generations. What you desire is already reaching toward you, but not as an external reward. It's a resonance, a recognition, a calling back into alignment with the frequency of who you truly are. Not as a reward for being good enough, spiritual enough, or positive enough, but as the natural resonance between your expanded essence and the realities that match it. This is where the critical difference lies: attraction versus alignment. In attraction, you're attempting to pull something into your current framework of reality. You believe you are here, and what you desire is over there. That belief creates separation, a gap you feel compelled to close with effort, technique, or endless practice. But alignment works in a completely different way. In alignment, you become the vibration of what you desire. And once you embody that vibration, the reality that matches it arises effortlessly. There's no strain, no gap to bridge, no delay between being and experiencing. There's no question of if, because you're not trying to obtain something external, you're expressing what you already are. Imagine a tuning fork struck at 440 hertz. It doesn't chase other instruments, begging them to play the same note. It simply vibrates in its frequency. And any instrument in resonance automatically begins vibrating in harmony. Alignment works exactly like this. You don't chase, you don't attract, you embody, and the universe responds in perfect resonance. Here's the shift that changes everything. The quantum leap isn't about aligning your personality with what you want. It's about aligning your identity with the version of you that already has it. It's not about hoping for a future. It's about inhabiting the timeline where that future is your present reality. Because all versions of you exist right now in the quantum field. The one still lacking, the one already fulfilled, even the one who never cared in the first place. Manifestation isn't about creating something new. It's about selecting which of those infinite potentials you will collapse into lived experience. The quantum field contains every possible version of your life, coexisting in the eternal now. The quantum shift is not about creating something new. It's about consciously choosing which version of yourself to embody. This selection doesn't happen through visualization, affirmations, or mental effort. It happens through a complete shift of identity at the quantum level. You literally become a different expression of consciousness. Not by forcing your personality to change, but by recognizing which aspect of infinite consciousness you're ready to express through this human form. And when this recognition locks in, manifestation no longer feels like striving or chasing. It becomes effortless expression. Think of a flower blooming.
The flower doesn't try to become beautiful. It doesn't visualize petals or affirm fragrance. It simply expresses its essence, and beauty is the natural byproduct. That's what happens when you embody your highest timeline. Your external reality reorganizes itself automatically to match the frequency of who you've become. In the next section, I'm going to show you how to make this quantum selection deliberately, how to access the identity that exists beyond the limits of conditioning, how to embody the timeline where your fullest potential is already alive right now. But before we dive deeper, I need you to make an energetic declaration. Anchor this energy in the comments by writing, "I embody my quantum shift."
This isn't just engagement. It's a commitment, a vibrational signal that activates the quantum field around you and links you with others who are stepping into this same transformation. Because when you fully embody the quantum shift, what once seemed like superhuman ability becomes your natural baseline. These aren't skills you need to practice. They're dormant capacities of your expanded identity, now switched on, integrated, alive in your everyday experience. Your perception of time becomes fluid, multidimensional. You start operating across multiple timelines simultaneously. You can draw wisdom from past versions of yourself, access information from probable futures, and make decisions from a vantage point that transcends linear cause and effect. This isn't psychic ability, it's quantum awareness, the recognition that all time exists here in the eternal now. You'll find yourself knowing exactly when to act and when to pause, not through analysis, but through direct knowing. You'll call people in the very moment they need to hear from you. You'll arrive in places at the precise time a key encounter is waiting. Embody my quantum shift and subscribe to lock in the frequency of eternal success.